Hello and welcome to the Road Show. I'm Lee Bukowski, your host, and I'm thrilled with our panel today and our topic. I think it's going to be a great conversation. I've got a wonderful panel of, I will, say, friends and colleagues and a new friend. So I think it's going to be a fabulous conversation. We're going to talk about creating through the ages. We're going to talk about the wonderful work that these authors are creating, still creating, what inspires them, what motivates them, and where you can learn all about their fabulous work. So I'm going to start by introducing my panel. We have Grace Sammon. Grace heads the, I can't even describe everything you do for Bookish Road Trip. You do head our membership here. I think you're kind of the person on speed dial when we all have, tech problems and things like that. But Grace is fabulous. She's the author of 7 books, including her novel, The Eves, which I highly recommend. 3 book series, Launchpad on Writing, Publishing, and Marketing. She also is the host of multi-award winning radio shows, Storytellers and Launchpad. And Grace, I'm so happy you brought us all together for this panel today.
I couldn't be prouder to be on this panel, so thank you.
And we also have Barbara Conrey. Hi, Barbara. You are the USA Today bestselling author of Nowhere Near Goodbye, your debut, and then your sophomore novel, which is My Secret to Keep. You are with Red Adept Publishing, and we're very anxious to hear about your journey with your writing. I will say Barbara and I live close to each other, close enough in Pennsylvania to each other that we are able to get together for lunch from time to time. And it's just one of my very favorite things that I do. So hi again, Barbara. And Barbara Davis. I have 2 Barbaras. It's like when I was teaching. I'm going to have to say Barbara D and Barbara C so we don't get confused. But Barbara, thank you for joining us again. I know you've been on my show several times. I'm so happy to have you back. Barbara left a successful career in the jewelry business and then left the corporate world to pursue her lifelong dream, which is writing. Her novels are best described as book club fiction with a little history, a little mystery, a little romance, sprinkled now and then with some magic. And we're going to talk about, Barbara, you and I have discussed this before, how what brought us to writing, because I think we've all had previous careers and, kind of that leaving that world and joining the world of writing. So I'm happy you're here and we can talk about that again. And Linda Rosen. Linda writes historical and book club fiction. And I also had the pleasure of meeting Linda in Chicago at the Women's Fiction Writers Association conference and hearing her speak. She's a wonderful speaker. So she's going to tell us all about her writing and publishing journey. She also edits our Wanderlust Bookish Road Trips newsletter, which is called Wanderlust, which is no small job. And Linda, you do a very nice job with that. So thank you for being here. And Patricia Sands is the author of multiple awards. Here. I think you have a little bit of a delay there, Linda. See if we can get that figured out.
Yeah, I'm getting a delay from you guys too. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to figure that out.
Maybe if you want to, do you want to sign out and sign back in? I mean, that's up to you.
Yeah, now she's frozen.
Mm-hmm. She's frozen. Okay.
But she's frozen with a great look across her face.
Yeah, exactly. Every once in a while.
We should all be frozen like that, right? Surprise? What do you think?
I don't know. Yeah. There you are, Linda. You were frozen with a very surprised look on your face. Okay, maybe she'll go out and we'll get her back in. But in the meantime, I want to introduce Patricia. Patricia Sands, who's coming to us from Spain today. We're so delighted to have you. And I'm so delighted to meet you. You are the author of multiple award-winning women's fiction novels. And you published your first novel at the age of, am I allowed to say it?
Oh, yes.
65. I can't even believe that. And so we're going to talk about your journey. And you're coming to us from Spain, but you spend a lot of time in the south of France, and many of your books are set there. So we're very anxious to hear about that as well. So thank you all so much for joining me today. Linda, you're back and you're not frozen. So that's good.
No, but it's so weird because every once in a while little circles go around and one of you goes out and then comes back in.
Sounds like
I love technology.
Isn't technology great?
I just love it.
Sometimes.
I
Okay.
actually missed something when you were talking to Patricia, though, and I'd love to hear it. What age were you, Patricia, when you
Oh, sure.
published
You
your
had to ask that question, didn't you? Oh, gee, Linda, I thought we were friends.
Because I think I might have been old. How? Come on.
Oh, yeah. No, 65 was I published my first book. Yeah.
65. So I was older when I published my first
Me
book.
too. See,
Well,
Yeah,
Patricia,
but
you're not
none of
the
you
oldest.
are as old as I am
Patricia, you were a kid.
now.
Listen, girls, I lie about my age. So I mean, this is going to be a lot of
Oh, no,
fun.
no. Own it.
No, you know what?
Own
You
it.
get to a certain point where you just don't care.
You don't care.
That's right.
Seriously, you just
Own
don't
it.
care.
I told my daughter now that she had a baby that she's making it harder for me to lie about my age, but I'll continue as long as I can. So that's a great first question. Those of you who did wait until later in life, and I'll let you define what that is. Why did you? So Patricia, let's start with you. Why did you wait until you were 65 to? And I know that's when your novel was published. I'm sure
Yes.
it took a while to write it. So tell us about that. Why wait that long to start your writing?
Well, I wasn't waiting for anything. I was busy living my life. And I just happened to start writing because, and I'll try just to give you the Coles notes on this. My husband had just retired. We were at our house in Florida. Toronto, Canada was our normal home. We moved during COVID out of the city. And he had just retired, and some of his health issues had kicked in. And so I had some extra time on my hands. And so I have a group of friends called the Bridge Club. We've known each other since we were in our late teens, early 20s, and we're still friends, and we still play bridge when we get together. And if we're not together, we Zoom once a month. And, we're all in our 70s now. And and not for much longer. So I just started writing this book called The Bridge Club, based on our friendship over 50 years. At the time, it was 40 years. And then people who read bits and pieces of it started saying you should think about publishing, which hadn't been in my mind at all.
Oh.
So it's not like I was, studying and preparing to enter the writing world. It just kind of happened. And then I had this book, and properly edited, and developmental editing and content editing and all the right things. I studied what to do, took a lot of writing workshops, and suddenly, boom, there I was, an author. Because then I started hearing from readers saying, we really like your book. What else have you written? And I realized that I loved being part of the writing world, because I had by this time gotten to know a lot of other authors and author groups, which to me is the foundation of writing for every author. And so, that was the start of it.
That is fascinating, because we always hear, it's one or the other. It's, yes, I've always wanted to do this, but I had this, and Barbara Davis and I have talked about this. Like you just feel like, well, I should do the thing that I went to school for, or the thing that makes money, and
keeps the lights on.
Keeps the lights on, exactly. And so for you to write this book based on your Bridge Club, and then not even thinking that you would publish it, and that was the start of your career, that's fabulous. So Linda, how about you? You also wait. I don't know. And again, maybe waiting is the wrong word. You started late.
No waiting. I have never even dreamt that I would ever be writing a novel and having it published and having my world open up to all these wonderful new friends. My thing started, I always was in a book club, and I used to think how fabulous it would be to write one of those novels and be the guest at a book club, and never thinking I was going to do it. And really, when I was nearing 60, I was looking for something different creatively. And my experience was happenstance. I was looking for a photography class, and I came across a writer's workshop, and I thought, oh, that would be fun. And I took the writer's workshop, and my fingers haven't stopped writing that keyboard. So really, I just fell in love with it.
You got bitten by the bug. And
I was
you know,
bitten by the bug. I took more classes. It was a good thing I took more classes because those early drafts really were pathetic.
yeah, those what do they say? There's no such thing as good writing, only good rewriting.
I
think
love rewriting.
Yeah,
Give me
exactly.
rewriting any day. Yeah.
So, Barbara Davis, tell us about the start of your writing career. You have a very storied career.
I don't know that. I've done a whole bunch of things, but at the time that my writing career took off, I was in the jewelry business. I was at the corporate level in the jewelry business and burning out so fast.
Mm.
And I told my husband, I've got about a year left, and then I have to go find something else to do because this job is just killing my soul. And he said, quit today. Don't wait a year. Quit today. Well, when you have the bills that you have are based on the salary you're earning, that's easier said than done. So I said, no, I'm going to start thinking and planning, and I'm going to put a plan together. And apparently the universe didn't believe me. So the universe said, here, we'll help. And 3 months later, I was laid off from my corporate job. And so immediately I started looking for a job just like the one I hated, because that's what that's what you do. And that's where my contacts were. And my husband said, you do not want to do this. Do not go back to work. Stay home. You've had an idea for a book floating around in your head for 4 years. Stay home, write the book, chase your dream, and I'll carry the ball.
Isn't that wonderful?
Kid, and I was just blessed to, on my 50, literally on the day of my 50th birthday, I signed my first book deal, a 2-book deal with Penguin. So
Wow.
not 65, but and I had no idea what in the world any of it meant. I had this idea for a story, and I had it partially written, but I had no idea what happens next. What's the world look like? So my agent is saying, well, you'll get arcs, and she's throwing around all these terms, and I felt like she was speaking another language. That we have a whole jargon, we have a whole world that doesn't apply to the world that I was in. And I felt like I was at the top of my profession when I left the jewelry business. And here I was at the bottom rung, feeling like I'm just so unworthy to be with all of these wonderful storytellers. And the thing that I found is most other storytellers are just wonderfully kind and generous people.
Yeah.
I have to say really quickly that all of you on here at one time or another, some of you very recently, have been very kind and generous to me. And I love all of you.
Oh.
And we love you.
Thank you for that. We love you too. And I couldn't agree more. And I can relate to your story, as I'm a recovering 7th grade teacher, and I loved that, but I thought, I can't do this forever. I will just spin around and fall over one day from it. And I think all of us probably share thoughts with another point that you made, which was you have no idea what this business is like, because you think, okay, I'll write a book and it'll be great, it'll be in stores and people will buy it and it'll be wonderful.
Don't think of it as a business.
No, right, there's no business. It's just you write a book and people read it. The business part of it,
when they read it, yes,
right, exactly, everyone will love it. But I totally agree that meeting other authors and being in these groups, authors are the nicest people. I think I can say that as part of the group. Authors are the nicest people. They're so gracious and supportive, and I don't think you can't do it without being part of the community. The community is just wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so Grace, tell us about when you got the writing bug.
I think I've always written, whether it was for the school newspaper or for the college newspaper. My first job, I was in college admissions, but I was in charge of writing all the brochures. So my first 3 books are all in the area of nonfiction. They're all in the area of education. So, but again, it was somebody told me, you should write a book. There's got a lot of stuff in here that needs to come out onto the page. So I think my first book came out 25 years ago in education. And I've been both traditionally published, non-traditionally published, hybrid published, self-published. So it wasn't though until I got to this juxtaposition in my own life where I had to say, okay, you're leaving the world of education behind. What do you do? And I had this nugget of a story, which was my novel. And thank you for the plug for it, Lee. I appreciated that.
It's
But
wonderful.
thank you. So for me, it was about figuring out about where do I go in this next chapter of my life. So really, the theme of today's show about creating into the ages was very much my character's theme of what do I do now? You know, she's 60 years old. Where does she go? What does she do? And she meets these older women. So I was just playing with my own arc. Where do I go? My own character arc. Where do I go in that story? And then the last three books, I went back to nonfiction, and they're all about the process of writing, publishing, and marketing your book. I'm hoping writing will always be a part of who I am.
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be. And I have all three of the books that you just referenced, and I reference them all the time as I'm painstakingly making my way through my second manuscript. So they're fabulous too.
Well, thank you. Well, that's a good point to also say that it really is a collective journey. The last three are anthologies with great chapters from 40 different authors. I just had the privilege and the crazy making of helping coordinate those 40 brilliant voices.
It must have been quite the feat, but I love them because you can just kind of go to one chapter if it's something that you're trying to learn about or perfect at the time. So highly recommend those. Barbara Conrey. Now we know you're only 40, so how are you going to possibly talk about starting to write later in life? I just don't know how you fit in here.
You know what's funny about that? I'm a lot happier now than when I was 40.
Yes, that's wonderful. I know that.
Yeah. I'm actually one of those people who intentionally waited because I literally had to. I was either too busy, or I thought I was too busy, raising my children, keeping a roof over their heads. So I had an idea, which was based on a friend of mine, the loss of her granddaughter. And this idea stayed in my head for years and years, and actually until I retired. And I retired at 64, and I started writing. And of course, I didn't know what the heck I was doing because I just thought, well, you know, I have a story. I'm just going to sit down and tell that story. And that's what I did. And it was like, I can remember the very first person who looked at my book was Wendy Gold Rossi, and she said, you know, it was like, oh my God, Barbara, what are you doing here? So then I decided, well, let's backtrack and take some classes and then see what we're going to do, right? So that's what I did. And she said, oh, this is much better, much better. And that's where Nowhere Near Goodbye came from. And I will say that I have been the luckiest person in the world because, I mean, I've managed to do everything wrong and yet come out smelling like a rose. And I've managed to find the dearest, sweetest people who have been willing to help me. And I've lucked into so many things that, you know, was not intentional, was not my plan. I didn't have a plan. I just wanted to write. And I will honestly say that's my plan today. I just want to write. However, there's so much more. So I actually published that book at 69, and it hit USA Today at 70. And, you know, I wrote the second book, and now I am like 2 chapters of just reading for the bazillionth time my third book. And, you know, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's so true. I think if we knew what the business was, if we knew, we wouldn't. I think we wouldn't do it. Honestly, I think it's better. It was sort of that blissful.
It's better not to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Right. And like all of you, I had the idea for the story of A Week of Warm Weather in my head for years before I wrote it. But Barbara Conrey, like you, I felt like I had a story to tell, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And, you know, I had my career and all of that. And it was just one day deciding I want to write. You know, this is what I want to do. So let's talk about how your creative process and how it's different now than it was when you were younger, or whatever, how it's changed over time. So Grace, we'll start with you and just kind of go around the panel.
Thanks for the question. I think that there is a wisdom and a patience, maybe, that I have at this age that I didn't have at other ages. Obviously, we all learn from our experiences. But if I were to write my novel or any future novel from the perspective of me at a younger age, I don't know that I would have been as good, I think, at capturing the nuances of what a character is and what the emotions are. So I think that the aging process, like several people have said here, we're happier now. I think, we have more experience, we're happier. For me, it's also I'm more comfortable in my own skin than I've ever been before. That doesn't mean that I think my skin is perfect, but I think that I'm just more comfortable with who I am. So that patience with myself, both in terms of my pluses and my minuses, gives me an ability to set a course better than I could have at a younger age. When I was younger, very much like Barbara, I was, in corporate, I was traveling 200 days a year. It was go to the next thing. And now I have the gift of time and patience.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And I feel like now I have the life experience. I'm more empathetic. I'm more reflective. I agree with you. However successful or not my book has been or will be, I don't think I could have written it as a younger woman. I didn't, like you said, I didn't understand the nuances that I do now. And I think it's so important because there's much more to it than just sitting down and writing a story. And I agree with you that you develop and you know yourself so much better as time goes on. Barbara Conrey, what do you say to that? How do you feel like your creative process has evolved?
Oh, it keeps evolving. And I swear I go about the art of writing in the most godforsaken way. I literally contacted Barbara Davis once because I interviewed her, and she like spits out these books like once a year. She gets her books in her head in a dream from beginning to end. I get nothing. I get the beginning and the end, and there's this vast space in between. How do you do this? I said, how do you do this? And she says, well, here's this book. So I go out and I buy the book, and it tells me, how to put everything in little categories. And then at the end, you just bring it all together. Well, you know what? I brought mine all together and I got nothing. I go right back to the way I do it, which is I just sit down and I start writing, and then I just start rewriting and I start rewriting. And, it's got to be the slowest process in the world, but it's what works for me, So I am never going to produce a book a year. I'm convinced of that, which is unfortunate because, how many years really are there left for me, But, well, just saying. So it's a process. It's slow. And I swear to God, it all comes from my fingers. It's like I'll be writing something and all of a sudden this whole thing comes to me. And it's like, where did that come from? It came from my fingers. It's like, I don't know, So it's a miracle. I am just a miracle. That's all I have to say. A slow miracle, but still a miracle.
If it weren't for those pesky 250 middle pages, it would be so easy,
right?
Wouldn't it?
And Barbara Davis, her dreams come from beginning to end. It's like
I know.
As easy as it sounds.
Barbara Davis.
My dream comes from your head to my head. Yeah.
Barbara Davis, tell us what you're eating or drinking before you go to bed that allows you to have these dreams.
It's not even a dream. It usually happens while I'm doing something else. I'm shopping, I'm cooking, or I'm out for a ride with my husband. The idea from whenever came while I was cleaning the toilet. Like the whole idea whoosh just landed on me while I was cleaning the toilet. And another one happened while I was in Hobby Lobby, and I literally ran out door to go home and write it down before it fell out of my head again. So I don't know. Like Barbara said, it's a miracle. And I hope, honest to God, I hope it never stops happening, because I don't know if I could sit down and just say, okay, I'm going to write a story about a woman who works in a coffee shop and she meets a guy and she's got a thing with their mother. I don't think I could put all those pieces down and make them come out straight. Barbara does it. That comes out of her fingers. But if it doesn't land on me like a whole big blob, I don't know. I don't know if I can work it.
Somehow incorporate a little bit of each,
But the amount of backstory that Barbara Davis does on each of her characters, she explained this to us recently, where she could probably write a book about every single character, what they wear, what the color of their eyes are, what their favorite food is.
And so my first drafts are all 600 pages long.
It's because of that book she told me about. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to ask you about that book. You can be sure. I was going to ask you what brand of toilet bowl cleaner you use. I mean, I've gotten a lot of ideas. Yeah, I've gotten a lot of ideas while cleaning the toilet, but never one for a book. So
no,
that's the first. I love that. Now I know what you mean, though. Just having the ideas come just from everyday tasks, and you're just doing your thing. And next thing you know,
I think like you make. I'm a terrible type A person. I schedule everything. I put everything is on a list. I love to check things off. So my brain is always busy. And so there's not a lot of room in there. That's why I said, if I sit down and have to think of it, all this other stuff is coming at me. It's not until I sort of check out of that place there's room for something else other than my to-do list.
Other than your list, right? Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Linda, how about you? Tell us about your creative process, how it has evolved, changed?
Well, first of all, I got to ask, because I'm having all kinds of connection issues. Am I here like live with you guys and normal?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. I am so glad Grace spoke first, because I would have wanted to say all those things she said, but probably not as eloquently. So I think a lot of it comes, I am the writer I am today because I am older, because of life experiences, but also very much like the character in my book, The Emerald Necklace, I found my self-confidence, which I did not have as much maybe when I was 30 or 40, to write the way I write now. As far as all the lingo that we have in this, I have to tell you, when I sat down for that first writer's workshop I took and they used the word craft, I had no idea what they were talking about. And so, now that I understand that, thankfully, after all these years, the process of writing, the whole story doesn't come to me. It comes out of my fingers, out of my toes. I don't know where it comes from. It's a mystery. It just starts to come, and something comes to me. Maybe not cleaning the toilet, because it's not one of my favorite things to do.
I was just going to ask about that. I was just going to ask if it happens while you're cleaning the toilet.
No, that's not rare. But it'll come to me when I'm swimming, and I can't go write it down. And I always get annoyed with that. But then once I get to my computer, whatever I was thinking in the pool really turns out better when I'm actually putting my fingers on the keyboard. So what's my process? I don't know.
It just marinates in there, and eventually it comes out fabulous.
It marinates, it comes down. Very often, though, I'll be doing research and I have an idea in my mind, and I'll research, and then more of the story, or that a scene will come to me from what I've been researching.
Yeah, especially with historical fiction, there's tons and tons of research. So probably,
but
a lot of ideas.
But like my work in progress right now, I thought came to me in full at one time. I thought, I know what I'm going to write about. I mean, I didn't have the whole story, but I kind of knew where I was going with this thing. And that's changed. I started that probably when The Emerald Necklace was, on its way coming out. This is, a year and a half later, and that changed 3 times at least. So what I thought I was going to write at the beginning changes because the character changes.
Character tells you, the character sort of tells you where to go or what he or she wants to do.
Absolutely. Character changes, and
they're very bossy.
and then
characters.
people's characters come up that you don't expect to come in. Like, where did that character come from?
Oh, yeah.
So when people ask about my writing or, you know, how it's changed over the years, I hope I can say it's gotten better. Yeah, that's it.
Patricia, how about you? Tell us about your creative process. I mean, I don't know how, possibly know how a person could draw inspiration from being in the south of France, but I don't know. Maybe
I know.
maybe it's possible. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I have to say I'm really glad that I'm going at the end of this question because everybody has said something that I would agree with and say as well. You know, it's a process that's different with every single person, and I'm sure that we all find that we write every day, and it may not necessarily be on our work in progress, but we're writing about something, whether it's on social media or whatever. And again, yeah, I couldn't have written my books when I was younger. I mean, I had to have lived this life and gotten to this point. And most of my characters are more mature women. And part of that came about from the Bridge Club because so many readers wrote to me and said it's really nice to read about women who are over 50, 60, 70, whatever, instead of 30 somethings. And so I really took that to heart, and I realized that that's what I'm comfortable writing about anyway, is women who've lived a bit of life. And so then, and then when I realized I wanted to write another book after the Bridge Club, I knew that I wanted to set it in the south of France because my husband and I have been going there for over 20 years and spending several months a year there. And it just is really where my heart and soul are. I'm sure that I was born in France several hundred years ago. I haven't gone through the whole genealogy, but I'm positive because it's just so much a part of who I am. So it's a really, you know, it's a simple thing for me to write about life there and creating the characters. Like everyone says, you know, you have an idea, and as the story goes along, they just become more and more developed and engaging, and then new people come in that you didn't even expect, and that's part of the fun of writing fiction. And yeah, I just I love it. I keep saying, well, I think that's probably my last book, and you know, my husband just right. All my friends say, yeah, didn't you say that last year?
Right.
And part of what I do that's been a really nice perk is that I've been able to develop a tour for women every year to go to the south of France and relive some of the places that I've written about in my books. And that's something that really keeps me going too. And, you know, I've kind of stayed indie because I'm not very good at meeting deadlines. You know, we have a big family with 7 kids and 9 grandchildren, and my husband isn't particularly well now, so I just need to know that I can write when I want to write, and I don't have to feel the pressure of deadlines as well. So that's one of the benefits. One of the something that's not really a benefit is that you don't make as much money, but it works for me. And this year, so I don't know why, but I've been very conscious of the fact that, you know, I'm turning 80 next year. Can't believe it. I keep thinking, okay, somebody made a mistake somewhere, you know, because what? Anyway, I decided that I was now going to take as many writing courses as I could to really just, you know, fill in the gaps of what I don't know. So I did a 10-week wonderful online course. It's really for emerging writers. Something called The Shit About Writing That No One Tells You, The Shit No One Tells You About Writing. It's Carly Waters and Cece Lira and Bianca Conrey. And it's an absolutely fantastic course. And I just said to them, like, is it okay if I'm not an emerging writer, but there's so many things you're going to talk about that I really was not well informed about through all the years I've been writing. So that course was just phenomenal, and I highly recommend it for anybody at any level, because it really gets into the business, not just the
Which
craft
has
of writing.
changed so much. Which has changed so much since we started.
Yeah.
So
And
in that way, we're still learning all that new emerging technology and the channels and stuff that are available. So that's a really good idea.
yeah, I found it just really amazing. And then Carly Waters put together this writer's playbook. And so I got that as well. And you can go through that at your leisure. And it is also just so full of good information. And I just love those three women. They're so articulate and down to earth and knowledgeable and experienced. It's so anyway. I can't say enough about that course. And then what I also did was, since I'm going to be in France for September, there was a writer's retreat in the town of Couloir, which is near the Spanish border. And Karen Carbo and her husband moved there a few years ago. She's a hilarious writer and very successful. Anyway, she runs a writer's retreat there twice a year in June and September. And it just so happened that September date fit in perfectly with my schedule for September. So I signed up for that and managed to get in. So I'm doing that the last week in September. And I've never done a writer's retreat before. So I think that's going to be really exciting and challenging, and hopefully is going to, help me to improve what I'm doing even more. So, you're never too old, right? Just keep
Yeah, and
going.
it's
Right.
just it is a business where you're always learn. There's something to learn. I mean, there's nobody. I don't think any of even the, whatever best-selling authors who've written for 50 years probably would say the same thing. That
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where you never stop learning, and I think that's great. In fact, I was trying to furiously write down as you were talking about the books and the courses and so forth and the retreat. I think that's wonderful. I want to ask you, all of you, what message you really hope to convey to your readers through your writing. Because I think that's something, there's something that we're trying to say. There's something that we want readers to take away from our writing. Barbara Conrey, I'm going to start with you. What is it that you want readers to take away from your writing?
Well, for me, every book I've written, I mean, there's a message. It's like there's always rescue dogs. That's always a sub story for me, and it's in my third book too. But the first book was about brain cancer, and the second book was about latent sexuality. The third book is about being a surrogate, but looking at it from a man's point of view, who it scares the crap out of him, and what he goes through as his wife is a surrogate. Funny little side story about that is apparently I've done a huge no-no, because I wrote this book from the man's point of view, and now I'm being told that, that's really not how women's fiction is projected from the man's point of view. So we don't know what's going to happen with that book, but it was the story that's in me. There's a purpose. There's always a meaning behind what I'm writing. And it's like, I always need to tell this story that's important to me and hope that it's important to somebody else. So that's me. It's like, I can't sit down and write a rom-com. I can't write a mystery. I can't write suspense, although obviously there's a little suspense in this third story, but I can't write just to entertain. I have to write to share what I believe is important.
That's so well said, that you write what's important to you and hope it's important to someone else. And it is.
Yes.
That's
And, well, it's like, I hope so. And I mean, my biggest thing is like, I donate funds to the Beagle Freedom Project from both of my books, and will for the third one also. And I mean, I support them wholeheartedly.
That's wonderful.
It's always got to mean something.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Grace, how about you?
Oh, I think, first of all, I think Linda Rosen can answer that question for me. But my tagline is always, when our stories are told, everything changes.
Right.
And I believe that the telling of our stories, whether they're from the passion that Barbara Conrey just mentioned, but each of our stories, whether they're memoir or the story that comes to you at the toilet, whichever one, it's like that telling those stories is so important. But also, it's about, we are never done. You know, it's for me, you know, the handprints, it's about leaving our mark on the world. And I want to convey to people that we are never done, you know, until they fold our hands in the box, as a friend of mine says. We are not done. And I think if you look around this screen, the women on this screen, each and every one of us, and I think I'm the middle child here, which I am in real life too, but I think just look at, you know, and I don't want to sound egotistical here, but we're all doing. And you look at Patricia Sands, just shared all about how she's continuing to build craft. Barbara Davis, who is turning her book into a Broadway musical. Talk about a learning curve there. You know, each of us, third books, fourth book for Linda Rosen. You know, Lee, you're in your working on your second. We're never done. That's my message.
Yeah.
And it's a great message.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. And it's just something that it's not something you sit down and do and say, okay, that was good. Now on to it. Whatever else you're doing, it doesn't leave you. We have something to say, and we're going to continue. We're not done. I agree with that. Linda, I'm guessing you agree with that as well.
Oh, totally. And I stole that from Grace, because when I speak at a lot of different functions, you know, organizations and all, people want to talk about writing later in life, and that's the one I use. Mm-hmm. We are never done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've used it myself.
Definitely.
It's so she's gonna bill us all.
Yeah, and I think we all share the same message too, that with readers, is that and it goes along with, we're never done. It's never too late, and don't be afraid to try something new. You know, and second chances.
Right. Second chances, and just the idea that, you know, you're not alone. Whatever you're going through, you know, we write about these things that are very often very sensitive, very difficult. And I think that's another thing, you know, that we want our readers to know. You're not alone. And there's somebody going through it as well. And maybe you can connect and relate. Barbara Davis, how about you? Is there a certain message, or is there what you wish to convey through your writing?
I think everybody's sort of already touched on a lot of mine. I tend to write grown-up women who have been through the ringer, who've got some scars, and they're at a crossroads. And my message, like everybody else has said, is, you know, there are you can forgive other people can forgive you. Second chances are real. And you can always, if your hands have not been crossed in that box, you can always rewrite your ending. Yes. You can choose what your ending is. And that's what I always want to leave people with, is the hope that just because up until now I've had to live a certain way and put up with a certain thing and felt a certain way about myself, my body, my health, my whatever, I can change that. There at any moment you can make a choice to do a 180 in your life. And that's my favorite thing that someone can say to me when they email me that they've just finished a book is, this was the book I've been waiting to read my whole life. This is exactly the book I needed to read right now. And then I'm like, you know what? Then I write a lot, like Barbara said, I write a lot of my books for me, because it's the story I feel passionate about. But then I always find sisters out there, and sometimes brothers too, who are going through the same things, looking for that same lift. So if I can help one person get some wind beneath their wings, I'm a happy girl.
That is so satisfying. I know when we all hear
Yeah.
from our readers that we've helped them in some way or brought them to some insight or understanding that they didn't have before. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many copies of your book you sell. That is just so meaningful. Yes.
Yeah, that's the reward, the ultimate reward, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. So I want to ask all of you, and actually, Grace, I thank you for this. Giving this idea. You all have non-author lives as well. Barbara Davis, we know you're doing more than cleaning toilets. Although we're all going to confess, we're just all
coming to clean your toilet, though.
we've got this beautiful woman, Barbara Davis. Every time we think of you or see your photo or see one of your books, we're going to think of you cleaning the toilet. You know that now.
Never stop cleaning your own toilet.
That inspiration is probably hitting you, which is wonderful. But so, Barbara Davis, I'm going to start with you. What are your hobbies? What do you do for fun? Besides, we know writing is just fun every day. Let's just clarify that. It's just so easy and fun.
My favorite thing is writing. It's like, when I have to stop and go, people's like, "Oh, you're going to go get pampered." I'd rather sit home and write than sit with my feet in a thing where I don't have my computer in front of me. I love to cook. My husband and I are foodies, so we love to explore new restaurants, new wines. We love to travel to places where we can explore new restaurants and new wines. And we love concerts. I love Broadway, that kind of thing. But it's I love to also, I bring all of that into my writing. And who knew that Broadway was actually going to come knock on the door for one of my books? That was, the universe totally arranged that. I had nothing to do with it.
So amazing.
That is beyond fabulous. That's wonderful.
Like Patricia, all of it, when it can kind of all wrap into the other part of your working life, it makes life so rich. So
you're right.
Very blessed. And I think at our ages, that's more likely than when we're 30 and trying to keep the lights on and change the diapers and whatever. So that's another way I think at our age, we're blessed to be doing this now.
Yeah, I agree. And Linda, what do you do do you have hobbies? What do you do when you're not writing?
I'm not writing a lot of time. Okay. Actually,
and you're really into fitness.
Barbara's, yeah. So that's what I was going to say. Barbara Davis, you would rather be at your computer writing all day rather than doing the other stuff, other than tasting wine with your husband, maybe. But I have a hard time putting all the stuff I love doing into a full day. And my best day is when I have done something physical, whether swam or played pickleball or did a workout in the house like I did today because we were having thunderstorms, and getting some good writing done, and then having a glass of wine while my husband has his bourbon. I need to be out among people, and I need to be doing my physical activities also. And I think because I'm writing later in life, I found that balance. I don't know if I would have had that balance when I was younger. Yeah. I might have just focused on one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Patricia, I know obviously
I need that balance.
You need a balance. I think it's so important. Patricia, you obviously love to travel. And do you have any other hobbies you engage in?
Oh, yeah. Well, photography's been a lifelong hobby of mine.
Nice.
And that's why I love Instagram so much, because I've got a bazillion photos from France and other places. And I realized after I started writing that I've been telling stories through photography all my life.
Exactly. Photography is storytelling. Yes.
That's right. And so that's definitely something that's ongoing in my life. And I play tennis several times a week. And during COVID, I started skiing again because we moved out of the city back up to a ski area where we used to have a winter place. So that's really a lot of fun. And of course, my family takes up quite a bit of time. Yeah, like as Linda says, you know, you need to get out there and
Mhm.
be amongst people, and that's where some of your stories come from. And but having that physical activity is really important too. I mean, I absolutely love playing tennis, and I would play every day if I could.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
That's great. Barbara
We'll get
Conrey, how
Grace
about
to challenge you in a game.
Okay.
Barbara Conrey, how about you?
Oh, you have to rip me away from my computer.
I know.
I'm really bad.
Every time I text her, no matter what time, night, morning, night, day, middle of the
I'm
day,
right.
what are you doing? She says, I'm
I'm bad.
writing.
I'm definitely bad. Although, when you rip me away from my computer, I can have a lot of fun and enjoy myself. I do like um, needlework. I quilt, counted cross stitch, that kind of thing. I like to do that
Mm-hmm.
because it's pretty much very scheduled and regulated. I mean, you just it's creative, but yet it's not. It's like, there's whatever. I like to go out to eat, obviously. I'd love to go out with you for lunch. I'd love to go out with Grace for lunch sometime. If only she'd move up here. I don't know.
She's gonna make the trek to Pennsylvania. We're gonna get her up here.
Yeah. So that's, that I'm definitely I mean, I exercise a lot, but I do it all inside.
Yeah.
I won't even go to the gym. I have all my equipment down in the basement, and I do all that. So I'm big on physical exercise, but I am not big on having other people around me while I'm exercising. I don't want anybody talking to me.
I'm the same way. Barbara, you just reminded me the 50th year in a row now I've forgotten to join the gym. Ugh.
Yeah.
Maybe next year.
Well, Renee's taking care of that for
That's
all of
right.
us. Because
She's exercising enough for
she
both
is
of us.
always at the gym. I
She's
mean,
always
she
at the
loves
gym.
it. It's
I
like I
know.
said, so how was gym class today?
Good for her.
I
Exactly.
know, right? And she kept saying, "Aren't you going to join?" No.
No,
Do you
then-
know me at all? So yeah, that's what I do.
So Grace, what are you doing for fun and hobbies down there in sunny Florida?
Oh, I play tennis. I play pickleball. I go for a couple of mile walks a couple of times a week. Haven't been able to do that since February because I broke my foot. But it's getting better so soon.
Good.
I have the 2 other radio shows, which are going on hiatus very soon. I'm actually looking forward to a break from those. I'm also just being able to connect with friends in a way that I didn't when I was younger. I think many of us are at an age where we have lost close friends recently, and we realize how every single day is precious. And so I'm taking a bit more time for the balance that I think Linda spoke about, and making sure I have that balance for friends and family. And volunteering is key to me. Whether it's volunteering here in the author community to lift other authors up, or whether it's through hospice work or other volunteering, I just, Barbara Conrey was talking about that with the kind of work she does with the Beagles. So for me, that's a hallmark.
And you do that. You are so gracious. And you did leave something out. You do put together a mean charcuterie board. So
honestly,
I always know when it's time for my Friday cocktail because Grace's charcuterie board comes up on my feed, and I'm like, yes, it's time.
I think I'm on my 3rd by then.
Those are great.
That's so awesome. So I cannot believe.
Well, we were talking about lunch before. Lee, you had said you have lunch with Barbara. I have had lunch with everyone on this except for Patricia.
Yeah.
So now you've got to.
I've had lunch with Patricia.
Yeah, we did.
I want to go to the south of France and have lunch with Patricia.
Okay.
Well, that's what
great.
that would be
You can go
fun.
on that tour.
If anyone
Good
wants
idea.
to join me, I know, Patricia, I'm going to be messaging you about that tour. You can believe that.
Okay.
I cannot believe almost an hour has gone by. It has been so wonderful chatting with all of you. Before we go, I want you to tell us where we can find you. What's going on at the moment, where we can find you. Grace, why don't you start us off?
Thanks so much, Lee. This was a beautiful panel. I love each and every person on it. So thank you. You can find me at gracesammon.net, and I hope you do.
We sure will. Barbara Conrey?
Okay, I've got it all printed out. BarbaraConrayAuthor.com. That's where I'm at.
And you're working on your manuscript is almost all but done.
Yeah, it's like it's done, and it's been done and done and done and done. It's like on the bazillionth. I am like looking for missing commas at this point. It's like I am
That's
so
how
angry.
close it is.
You're gonna have to rip it out of my fingers.
And
Okay, I want to interrupt for a moment because Barbara, I wanted to say to you when you made your comment about you were a little worried about having that male protagonist.
Yeah.
That my last novel last year, The Secrets We Hide, my protagonist is a Japanese man, and
award-winning novel.
And I was reassured through Women's Fiction Writers Association and talking with a few other writers that, as long as the man is experiencing the same sort of emotional journey as a woman, even though it's going to be different because he is a man. And with mine, he's also Japanese. So then I got into this whole thing, like with Lake Union, about cultural appropriation, like you're only supposed to write stories.
That book is beautiful.
Thank you.
Love that book.
Thank you very much. And it was a bit of a change for me in some ways. And it has won a couple of meaningful awards. So that made me feel really good, so just go for it with that male protagonist.
Well, thank
Don't
you.
worry.
That does make me feel good.
Oh, and for what it's worth, and I have a lot less experience and success than all of you, but I keep telling Barbara that, like, whoever they are who is telling you you shouldn't have this male protagonist, don't listen to them, because it's a beautifully written story.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, Patricia, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram, and my website is patriciasandsauthor.com. And I always love to say that I'm part of Blue Sky Book Chat with my Blue Sky sister, Barbara Davis. And we, are a small group, but active, and
it's a fun group.
I'd love to see you there. And I love each and every one of you. It's just really a pleasure to spend some time together. So Lee, thanks very much for putting this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to meet you. And Linda, did I ask you already where we can find you? I feel like I'm asking the same question over and over again. No, tell us, Linda, where we can find you.
Well, my website is linda-rosen.com, and you can connect with me on Facebook and Instagram through the website. Just click on it and it'll bring you to my pages there. I love talking, or join my infrequent newsletter, because I love talking to my readers and to my writer friends, and this is the best.
She has such a nice newsletter.
I really love being with all of you.
It's a nice newsletter.
Awesome. And Barbara Davis, where can we find you?
Best place to find me for book stuff is still Facebook, and Blue Sky Book Chat, active there. And it's a great group, very fun group. Some really talented ladies who are just like the salt of the earth, my sisters. And my website is barbara-davis-author.com, because there's more than one Barbara Davis, and I get confused with the true crime writer, which gets creepy sometimes. I just finished book 9 and turned that one in, finished developmental edits on that, and I am starting book 10.
Oh, you're amazing. You are amazing. If I disappear quickly, it's because my battery is dying.
No, we're going to be we're ending now. As much as like I said, I feel like we've been chatting for 5 minutes and a whole hour has gone by. So I just want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the road show. Your stories are all incredible and unique, and all of you have supported not just me but all of us. And it's a great community, and I'm so happy to be part of it. And I thank you all for joining me on the road show today.
Well, thank you. Thanks, everybody. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Izu.